let anyone in that comes in a little bit late.
Great.
So, as you can see, today's classroom is how to develop ideas and find inspiration for a concept. And Julia is going to take us through that in just a moment. So I'm just going to take you through a few things beforehand. So firstly, who am I? So I am the business development executive at this space. So I've been with the company for 1.5 years now, after 7 years working in audio, visual and production within the events industry, both within venues and externally. So the part of my role that I like the most is connecting and meeting new people and finding out what you do. So please get in contact and introduce yourself. Let me know how you're finding the webinars and if there's anything we can do at all as a company to support you or any topics that you'd love to see in these webinars. So the purpose of this Space Classroom, our weekly webinars, is there's no denying the fact that life has slowed down a little bit after the past few months and we're really missing connecting with our network. So we also have a whole lot of knowledge within our company and decided to create an opportunity to share some of it with all of you and hope we can add a bit of value to your day-to-day work lives. So a bit about this space, if you're not already familiar, I know there's a few familiar faces on there and a few non-familiar faces, which will become familiar faces in no time, I'm sure. So we are a team of 10 and we're made up of events, styling, business development and operations. We've been in operation for 16 years now. We've produced events from 5 persons right up to 80,000 persons. Our styling inventory has more than 1,500 product lines and we create bespoke products within our warehouse. The clients we work with are a huge range from banking and finance, cosmetic, fashion, media. We also partner with other event agencies to deliver the styling side of our business as well. So if you're an agency and you go to external styling companies to deliver your styling, that's a service that we offer as well. No event is too big or too small for us to work with you on. You may have all aspects covered and need some support on styling, or you may need full end-to-end event delivery. Whatever you require, we tailor our service to suit you. We pride ourselves on adding value to your event and ensuring you receive maximum engagement and return on investment. And overall, we are a super friendly and fun bunch. Our showroom door is always open and we'd love to have you guys over for an afternoon wine or a morning coffee to chat and find out if there's anything else we can do. So as restrictions start lifting a little bit and we can do that, please get in touch because we'd love to have you over and learn more about you. But that's it for me for now. I'm going to hand over to Jules, who's going to take you through the presentation.
Beautiful. Thank you, darling. Can I ask everyone, just while I do the presentation, if you can turn your videos off, and then when we finish the presentation, we'll come back and be able to see all of your beautiful faces. So let me just get this open. Mode. Okay, how's that looking? Can everyone see that okay? Good, Shanae?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good.
You know, I want to start with like, how is everyone? Because it is a very different and changing landscape. I shared with our team this morning on the whip call, just going out for my morning walk, and it was really bizarre to see all of this traffic, and it was like, oh my God, like what an assault on the senses. And I'm sure that, you know, everyone's having those little moments, let's be honest about them. So, you know, I thought what helps me through that time, and I thought I'm going to do a slide on puppies for you all, because I think that is one of the things that just makes us all happy. So there's some puppies. Let's get into it. So I'm Julia Barnard, but you better call me Jules because I feel like I'm getting told off if you call me anything but that. And I just wanted to give you a little collection of pickies so you can see myself and my journey. So, you know, on the top left there is myself, my beautiful husband, Barry White. Yes, that's his name. And that's us in Alaska. And then Biggins, who is my little beautiful fur child, who, if you haven't been over to the office, you need to come over and get to meet him. He greets everyone with a lot of love. And as I track along there to the sort of the far right, you know, some of the events that I've got to work on, and God, I've been really lucky. The most heartfelt probably one was when I did a security audit for the Department of Veteran Affairs at the Anzac Day commemorations in Gallipoli. So yeah, an incredibly honourable experience to be able to have. Back to the light relief, there's my cat Bertie, who just loves the bath and can't get him away from it. And then just some travel shots of where I've got to go and places that I've got to be. So you know, for those who don't know me, I wanted to share that, but also just some fun facts. This is my life in 5 fun facts. So my first job interview was as an admin assistant in a brothel. I didn't realise it till halfway through the interview. So it just tells you that you never know the situation's going to end up in. I once gave the Dalai Lama a Pepsi and asked if he'd like fries with that, and thank God he laughed. I worked on the finale of The Apprentice in the US and asked Donald Trump's hairdresser if his hair was real, and it is, which is amazing. I was arrested in Thailand twice and talked my way out of jail, and that is a long story, and that needs to happen over many, many cocktails. I nearly got run over by the Queen, which was about that far away from being run over. So I like to pretty much say to everyone that I've met the Queen. And I wanted to add in an extra one because this will make sense as we go through a little bit later. But I'm obsessed with finding out people's stories. Literally every documentary I can get my hands on. Who doesn't love women's hardest prisons? Always have a good story to tell. So the epicness of the topic that we are trying to cover today is how to develop creative ideas and find inspiration. And I feel like we might as well cover world peace at the same time because it is that big, and cue that Space Odyssey music in the background because you're in for a wild ride, and I still enjoy that ride every day. There is no one, magical solution to this, but this is my process, and I hope that it's going to work for you too. So, isn't creativity about rendering an emotional response? And my God, yes, it is. Absolutely. We want to make sure, no matter what, that we can get the response that we need out of it. But if you think that it's only that, then I'm afraid, no, you haven't nailed it, not quite. It's very important the first time, like you have to find your creative mojo, and everyone's is different. And that comes with confidence and conviction in your ideas. There has to be balance in those ideas. And trust me, it is not easy. So if you're feeling that moment of frustration, that is absolutely okay. To be a true creative, you really need to have that. I mean, the most tortured artists were the ones who were the true creatives. So, that should be me there. That should be a picture of my face because that's me at 2-3 o'clock in the morning when I do have my best creative inspiration. But God, I'm sure we've all had that moment in our brain of like, what do you mean my ideas suck? Like you just don't feel like they're really, nailing it. And it's really, really important that you just push that out of your brain. Those words should never, ever be used. It is a serial killer of creativity. So now we cue the Jedi music. And so from this moment on, I'm getting my Obi-Wan Kenobi on here. Those thoughts must be banished from your brain for good and replaced with, I am a ninja of nimble thinking. I adapt, I try, I test, I fail, and I land on my conviction of ideas. If you're not convinced, who else is going to be? So let's get into it. What's important is to get a little structure, and a couple of the questions we've received is about that, around your creative thinking. And for me, it all starts with understanding the why. Now, if you've got a pad and pen with you, write that down in the biggest letters you possibly can, because it's the only post-it note that I would ever have on my computer. The why. Why am I always doing what I'm doing? People don't ask enough questions. If you're not being difficult, you're not really being the creative explorer that you need to be. You need to be asking a multitude of questions, but don't just settle for the one answer. Keep probing through that, because a lot of people, and especially clients, when you're sitting down with them for the first time, it's about, everything's in their brain, and we have to get it out of their brain. And if you don't sort of get super inquisitive, how are you going to find out? So I truly believe in the 5 senses. So sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. But what if there was one more? And that's what I like to explore, because, you know, when we're in events, we play with all of those elements. It's kind of like our jam, isn't it? But there is one more that we can't really quantify. That one extra element that binds all your ideas together. And I like to really think of it as that 6th sense. So the Japanese like to call it umami. And if there's anyone who's watching MasterChef right now, they talk about it all the time. I'm kind of like, no, I'm not really finding that with what you're talking about, because it's kind of, for our industry, it's that sort of that spine tingling moment. It's that moment when you got out of lockdown and you saw your loved ones for the first time and you gave them a hug. And for those of us who haven't had a chance to do that yet because our loved ones are interstate, God, I hope you get it soon. So remember, the Japanese like to call it umami. No, that's edamame. So no, totally different thing. So let's just make sure we keep you on track with that. So umami is the perfect blend that creates that deliciousness in a dish. Like, it's the thing that you just go, oh my God, that burger was the best thing I've ever had. Matched with that beer, like I'm in the best location, I'm sitting with my friends, I've got the sound and chatter going on, and suddenly you're just going, how do you describe that perfect day, that perfect experience? Well, that's what you have to do when you're developing your events. So how does that relate to creativity though? So if we take the 5 senses and we break them down in an event concept, and let's start with sight, because I think that for most people that can resonate so well, because we are visual storytellers. So I wanted to break it down into an event that we all would have been a part of. So we've all been to a concert. The anticipation builds when we first walk in, and we see the sheer volume as the audience grows. You see an empty stage and the colour, the crowd, and you know there is more to come. There is a taste of smoke haze. And when I was talking about taste, it's not just what you taste, it's what you can taste in the atmosphere that floats across the stage. And then the crowd starts to build and your body's compressed against total strangers. And that's the power of touch. And for some reason, because you're there for that collective experience, you don't seem to mind it so much. Maybe you will now after COVID, but you know. So then comes the sound. And it's that roar that starts at the back of the stadium. There is something that they know that you don't, because they're seeing something differently, and then everyone starts clapping and cheering and your hairs start to stand on end, and then boom, it's umami. And it's like, this is just electric. There is this shared experience of fabulousness with your biggest tribe ever, and you've created that tribe because you've tapped into all of those senses. You know, sometimes acts don't nail it because they have the front act at the beginning who's just, you just go, oh my God, that's so boring, and you're kind of dropping everything, and then suddenly it all starts to build again. So this electric combination of this shared emotional experience hits you like a freight train before they've even begun, and you know you're in for a great night. Now that's umami, that's the 6th sense. So haven't we seriously got the best jobs in the world? We get to craft someone's emotional experience to our desired outcome. But to get to this, as I mentioned in the beginning, we need to understand the why. So if you don't know the why, then how can you create? What is the outcome I really want for my audience, and how do I tap into the 6th sense? If you don't know that, you must stop. You must go back and you've got to work it out. And like I said before, this is not easy. This is like just pairing it to the why is really, really challenging. But once you've nailed that and you've written that sort of byline of the event, you can then start to build on the umami senses of those 5 senses. How am I going to reach that through sight? sound, taste, touch, etc. So I've been obsessed in COVID with different webinars, and I sat in on Verizon Media's talk with Maz Farrelly. Oh my God, that woman is seriously creative. She was the producer who came up with Big Brother and UK's Got Talent, so on and so on, and just she came out with these really strong words. It is not our job to be interested. So we're talking about your audience now. It's not their job to be interested at all. It's our job to make sure it's interesting. And just think on it, because if you go back to anything you do, so whether you're crafting an event, you're working in your job, you're wanting to get an idea across the line and you're just not getting there, are you being interesting enough for them to be interested? And if you're not, then you need to change, because we are creative storytellers. You need to change your story. If you're boring, go home. Like I can't stand it. Everyone in our team knows my threshold and patience is really small, which is not great. I'm just like, oh my God, let's make sure that we're creating some mojo here. So if people are bored, you've lost them. Like a horrible, horrible breakup with no words. It's like, it's the most awkward thing in the world. And you just think, well, that's it, we're done. So coming back to the why, and as I said, I told you it's not easy. You need to first start with the umami. What is the desired final outcome we want from this event? So I've got to give you an example here, because I feel like these are big, strong words that I'm using. So Mark, who started Purple Bricks and Yellow Brick Road, and he nailed it. I think, I thought, wow, that's really strong. So he said, I don't sell mortgages. I sell the dream that one day you will bring your kids to a home to grow up in, make memories, and one day you will leave this legacy to them. I mean, that is powerful umami right there, in the fact that he's gone, I can say, oh, I sell mortgages, but actually that's just the bit of paper that it comes on. What it is for someone who goes to get a mortgage is so much bigger than that. And so once you've nailed that, so the why am I selling mortgages? Well, bang, there you go. Now you can develop from that what your creative vision needs to be. So I kind of break it down into a formula. So asking the why equals the end emotion. So what is that end emotion of what people want out of that, or the desired action or outcome? And then you work backwards on the other 5 senses, always checking in on, does this reach an umami moment as you build your event? As you go through those senses, am I starting to really resonate and answer the why of why am I doing this? So I'm going to finish, because I told you these are like little rapid sessions, but and we can do more of these later on to explore every little aspect of this, and I can't wait to see your questions. But I'll finish with this creativity, and people ask me this all the time, like where do you get your creative juices flowing, and where do you get ideas from? But the inspiration is absolutely essential, and you need to draw from everything. It's not like there's one website that you go, oh, well, this is where I go. No, it doesn't work like that. So you should be drawing from food, culture, connection with other people, not just in your sphere, but outside your sphere. I'm doing the most beautiful, I'm loving it. Like every day at the moment, I do this Co-Live 19 calls where I get to talk to the most incredibly mind-blowing people that I just think, God, before that, I didn't have the time to do that. Why didn't I have the time? For a start, I've got to make sure that I create it, because it feeds my soul like you wouldn't believe. So that's from communication, like imagery, and there is so much to draw from. And I think a lot of people get challenged slightly in thinking that they have to have just the complete original thought. It's very hard to have an original thought. There's nothing wrong with drawing inspiration from an idea. Just don't rip it off and claim it as your own. Be really honest about where your resources come from. Collaborate is absolutely king during this time, and I hope forever. It's kind of my mantra. I've always loved it, and I hope more and more people are going to embrace it. So what's important is, like, when you get stuck, and you absolutely will, and I do, and everyone does, and if you work solo, so if you're an event manager who works in a company and you're the only event manager, sometimes you just need outside help, and you just got to reach out. You really have to work with your agency to push the boundaries of your brand and push the confines of your people, and then you'll come back with the best creative story you have ever told. And why? Because we tell the best stories for a living, which makes our audience experience umami. So I'm going to finish with, I love this picture so much. Like, you know, we do have to wake up. We've got to kick ass, and we've got to be kind in that process, and we just got to repeat it. It is not rocket science right now. It is, and always has been, post COVID, it is about sharing your vision. So I want to finish with one really important aspect, from being, you know, an event coordinator through to an event producer, and then doing creative direction work and getting to travel around the world. I've learned a very valuable lesson, and that's always pack light, because as you can see there, 6 suitcases was a real challenge for me. So that's me for now. I'm going to hand over back to Shanae, and I'll stop sharing this. There we go. So we can all be back together, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that. I had the pleasure of rehearsing that with Jules a bit earlier, and I literally didn't want it to end, so it was really good being able to watch that again. So I hope everyone got something valuable out of that. And we're going to answer some questions that were sent through in the registration process. But in the meantime, if you've got anything else, just use the chat function down below just to put your questions in, and we can answer them after. If you think of anything later, please contact us. I know sometimes you go away and think about things, and more comes back to you. So feel free to get in touch after if anything comes to mind. But for now, we're going to answer the first question. And this is from Jackie from New Caledonia Tourism. And Jackie asked, where's a good place for you to start? I don't consider myself a creative person, so some useful tips would be great. And I can imagine a lot of people probably have that same question.
Oh my God, great question, Jackie, thank you. And you are absolutely a creative person. So this is the big misconception that is out there, that people feel like unless they are designing or producing for the opening ceremony of the Olympics, they're not a creative. The most creativity comes from really understanding, and what I was talking about is the why. So knowing that you're answering the question that somebody needs is super important. Understanding your audience of why are they bothering to have their time taken up in coming to your event or experiencing your product or whatever service it is that you provide, that they're you're really clear on what is the solution and how you can do that. And I suppose one of the big things is that changes for every single person. You know, your audience is not just this cookie cutter of one type of person. So it's really sort of making sure that if you get stunted, and we all do, and I do as well, if you get stunted on your creativity, you've got to open your sphere up. You have to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi of trying, testing, failing, adapting. And if you get stuck on one of those processes, reach out, grab a trusted advisor and turn around and go, I just can't push past this moment. And you'll never know, they might just give you that one little droplet that trips off what the next thing's going to be.
Awesome. So the next question, this is from Keelan from AV1. So budget versus reality, how big do we dream?
That is excellent. Thanks, Keelan, because I love that. I do love that. So one of the things that I get really, really challenged with is, and I had the best call yesterday with Saffron, who works at the Opera House, and we talked about this, of it's so important to sort of get an indication of what a budget is from the beginning. It is super helpful, but I was then talking to her about I had this moment where I was pitching for a new piece of business and going into we were told actually by this agency that they wanted to spend $500,000 on this sort of event concept, and what it was going to be was this sort of longevity of a campaign. And reading through their brief and then having the chance to go back for question time and understanding, I really wanted to understand the why. Like, why are you not engaging with your audience? Of how you, what is the psyche of the people that you're wanting to talk to? And then came back and pitched where they had a $500,000 budget, came back and pitched a 20 grand idea. And won the business, which was really, really exciting because they loved the idea. And I said, you don't need to spend $500,000 on that. You spend 20 grand on that and you're going to nail what it is that you really want. And then the other 480,000, extrapolate that out to talk to a wider audience that I think you need to be speaking to, but you're not even thinking about that right now because you have got these blinkers on. So I love that question of budget versus reality. It is a challenging one because you do sometimes, and being an AV company, you'll get it all the time, where people will go, oh my God, I would like to have the light show of the opening of the Olympics, but I've got $2,000. So understanding that is really, really important, and extrapolating out from that, but actually why do you want to give them the opening ceremony of the light show when you could actually create a very bespoke moment for somebody with their budget of $2,000? So it's a good question. I like to turn it around back onto them and really say, good to have parameters. It's helpful when creating, but it's our job, again, to be the interesting party. It's not their job to be interested, it's our job to be interesting. So if we need to be interesting on their budget of $2 grand, then, you know, get your creativity out. You can do it.
Awesome. So the next one we've got is Jackie Diamond from Mathematics Association of Victoria. This is a question that I can definitely relate to, which is late night ideas and how to remember them.
Oh God, I just got goosebumps on that. Jackie, late night ideas. I am the shocker for the 2 and 3 a.m. wake up moment. Bang, suddenly I'm going to fix world peace. No, I'm not, but it just consumes my world. I can't think of anything else. Super important. And look, I've had so many people say, oh, you should just keep a notepad and a pen beside your bed. No, I'm not going to flick on the light and be doing that. What a nightmare. But what you should do is when you do get up, and you need to understand if you are a morning person or a night person. I am a, super early morning person. So I get up and then I actually draw my idea. I don't write down the idea. So I either do it as a flow, or I will do like little doodles of what it is, but I don't physically write paragraphs of what it is. Then I go and do something else, and then I float that idea, like what I'm doing today where I'm talking to you. I do the same thing with the team. So I'll come in, God love them, they put up with so much from me, like at the moment we have our 10 o'clock whip call, and it's like I've got verbal diarrhea at the moment. I just can't stop myself. And then I get on the call and I'm like, and then I had this idea, and what do you think of this? And God, I'm always met with love and enthusiasm, and they probably get off the call and go, Jesus, she's batshit crazy. But it's try the more the infographic style of what your idea is. Float it, test it, try it, fail it, come back to it, talk to other people about it, who can give you a few ideas of what else to do with that idea.
Awesome, Jules, thank you. And next we've got the lovely Emerald from Ken Vale. So she's asked, what do you do when you find yourself against a creative mental block? How do you map out your designs and ideas as they come to make sure that you stay on track? Which I think you did answer in your presentation, but I'll let you go back to that one.
Yeah, and look, it like I said, it's kind of like I've covered a bit there. So yeah, it's really, if you've got that mental block, you've got to come back to understanding the why. Like just stop, do not go any further. And if you can't work out what that is, and sometimes that's really challenging because maybe your end client doesn't even know. So then you've got to go into a virtual counselling session of understanding and extrapolating from them, why is it so important to them to have this, understand the emotional side, and probably the slide that I had there with Mark's quote about, you know, he doesn't sell mortgages, that he sells the dream of owning a home one day, that your children will play in the garden and you'll have this legacy to hand back to your children. Well, there's now understanding the why of why he sells mortgages. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Awesome. So I know you said there is no one place to finding inspiration, but Corinne from IEC Group has asked what your favorite resource is for finding inspiration.
Look, I'm a highly visual person, so I connect most to imagery. Now, imagery comes through every type of experience of traveling, observing other people. God, I love doing that. Gets very awkward because I stare and then, you know, they kind of start staring back at me and it's very awkward. But that type of thing is super, super important. That whole holistic approach of what you experience, and you've got to experience things that you don't like as well. Like, don't just kind of go, oh, I just love doing this, I'm going to do that all the time, because what's important to you isn't important to everyone else. Remember, like, it's our job to be interesting. So if you don't have stories and experience different things, then how can you know, sell your ideas? So it's getting out. I love, like I said, because I'm visual, I love going to art galleries. I love seeing exhibitions that come through because they come from all over the world. I love modern art. And if I'm talking about from a website point of view, Maison d'Object in Paris will give you some good inspiration. Milan Design Week, obviously, that's always a good one. Colossal, so that is a great website which pulls all those type of things from around the world. A little bit like Yellow Trace for Australia, Colossal is global.
Perfect. And now last from the pre-registered questions, Mon, you've asked a question which may have a bit of a similar answer to Jackie's from Mathematics Association, but Mon has said, I'm an abundance of ideas person, but I need guidance on how to prioritize the best ideas and follow through without getting sidetracked, sorry.
I love that, Mon, because I think we've spoken about that. I'm exactly the same. I'm probably blushing because I am exactly the same. It is so hard. I get it. It is super, super hard. But I think one of the key things is that I really, really, really rely on my team. We all come with very different skill sets. And if you're a solo operator, you've got to find those people who are your tribe, who you can kind of feel really cradled and supported in knowing that your ideas are going to be honoured, no matter what they are. Because if I go back to that image, you know, of being in the middle of the night and going, oh my God, my ideas suck, or I've got millions of them and I don't know how to pull down the right ones in the right order, then that's when you have to reach out to your tribe who are going to go, I love it, Mom, but are you doing the X, Y, and Z right now? And actually those 3 ideas could actually be absorbed into one idea, and then this could be floated this way. And have people who are not going to shut down those ideas is really, really important.
Awesome. So you'll see on the chat, we've got a few awesome questions. We've got the first one from Saffron. So Saffron has said, great presentation. I work in a venue. I would love to know how we, the venue, can help event agents with building a creative pitch. I love that question.
That is gold. Good on you, Saffron. Go on. We could have continued on that from yesterday. Look, I think what is Look, I'm going to be slightly challenging there because every event agency works differently. So I suppose some have a very, very clear vision and style of how they work, and clients come to them particularly because they work a certain way in a certain framework. And then there's others that are more of a strategic agency style. And so I suppose what's super important is it's actually their responsibility, and where you could come into play with this is by you asking the why, like coming back to them of, well, why are you wanting to hold it here, and how can we tap into the psyche of your client before you come for a site visit. And the whole reason of the Opera House is I kind of feel like she is the great dame of Sydney. You do want to walk in and lift up her skirt and have a little look around and go, my God, this is the umami of the Sydney Opera House. You don't get that anywhere else, and it's about, do people want to tread the boards of where great performers of the world have stood? And when you come in, and even if you just do like a walk around and a walk through, and there isn't actually, you're not going there to see a performance, you feel it. Like you feel this amazingness of this past audience who are enjoying that moment. So I think you can be really inquisitive with them, asking the why of why they're wanting to hold it there, because then you can also get down to, actually, do you want that type of audience in the Opera House as well? It goes both ways.
Perfect. So Bernie McFarlane has asked, thanks, Jules. Any suggestions on how to sell your ideas to a manager or client who is resistant to ideas that are too new or innovative for them?
Bernie, great question, because obviously we get that all the time. It's sometimes, we will go and present to a client and they are not ready or wanting to go on that creative journey right then. But if I come back to that slide, that beautiful term that Maz Farrelly has coined of, it's not their job to be interested, it's our job to be interesting. It means we've got to really understand the psyche of the person or the company that we are working with. And then it's, if you think about it and you think, okay, well, they're not quite on that creative journey. It's like if I turn around and I say, I want to take them there and I'm going in to pitch that. If someone was coming and doing that with me, I'd go, boom, let's get into it, love it, because I'm into that stuff. But say somebody is a bit more of a cautious person, or there's more at play for them in their company. It's taking small bites of it. It's going in and presenting in a big way, but a small piece of what that pie looks like. Give them time to digest, ask the questions that they need to. Maybe in their mind they're having to audit what that looks like before they can't jump to what that is. Then you go back in and you adapt, you try, you test, you fail of the feedback they've given you, move on to the next thing and go in and present, well, now I'm presenting to you the next reiteration of what this looks like. And yes, there's a lot of time involved in that, but that's our job again to do that.
Cool. Well, that sort of concludes the questions. Unless anyone wants to ask anything now, feel free to turn your camera and your microphone on and ask us a question. If not, as I said, you've got our contact details, so please send through any questions that you might think of after, or as well as any other ideas you might have for our webinars. So when you registered for this, you would have seen the schedule. Next week, we've got how to get the best out of your suppliers, which I think will be an interesting one for everyone on here. I'd love to see some suppliers in there, and I'd love to see your questions sent through in the pre-registration side of things as well. I think that will be a really good one. But thank you so much for today. And Jules, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. I certainly learned a lot, so I can imagine everyone else here did as well.
Thanks, guys, and thank you everyone for taking the time this afternoon. I know, there's lots of things out there that you can go and see and look at, and oh, look at your beautiful love in the chats. You're so gorgeous. Thank you. And log on next week. It'll be fun.
And we'll send this recording out to everyone as well. So feel free to pass it on to anyone you know that may have missed it that you think would enjoy this.
Cool. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.